Well, I've talked about this a lot this week, and one reason is because insiders are talking about it with me, and the other is, a week ago we were standing there, and Stetson Bennett basically, I mean, he's just straight up said, "I think I can be better in 2021." He says, "I'm going to be better in 2020, excuse me, in 2022 than he was in 2021," and that would be a step in the right direction for Georgia because this team is going to need its offense to play at least noticeably better, maybe not a lot better. I mean, you're still talking about a team, in case you forgot, that had finished the season as a top 10 offense scoring wise. And it's hard to get a lot better than that, but the teams that they're going to have to beat are also in the top 10 in terms of scoring. In terms of total offense, no, Georgia was not quite as good as some other teams. But in terms of scoring, it was noticeably better. You'd rather be better at scoring than offense. Georgia was 26th in the country in offense. They were number 10 in scoring. And when you are number 10 in the country in scoring offense and number 1 in scoring defense, by 4 points, by the way, almost five, then that's a recipe for a national championship. That's a recipe for me printing DAWGSTRUCTION. Make sure you're clicking the link down below. I'm running out of books again. Get in before this fifth edition is printed. That's important. So can Stetson get better? Yeah, he can. I mean, if you watch G-Day, that was a throwing competition. That was not a quarterback competition. So there's a difference. I mean, if you talk about just throwing the football, then guys, who's a great example? Jeff George would be an NFL Hall of Famer. Well, he's not because he was, and this is all relative, right? Because Jeff George was more a thrower than a quarterback compared to his peers. Stetson, compared to his peers, is a better quarterback than thrower. When you look at physically who is the best quarterback on this team, it might be Carson Beck, but it's hard to overlook Brock Vandergrift's abilities too physically. But the difference is playing quarterback is playing the sport, playing the position. Obviously people use the term quarterback position, which is redundant. It is a position. That's a pet peeve of mine. But when you start talking about playing that spot, um, there's a lot that goes into that, including accuracy and leadership. Physical tools do matter a lot, and I do think there are times when I mean I don't mind that Smart started the season in 2020 with Dwan Mathis. I mean, it was hard to overlook his physical tools. When you go back and look at his ability to run in that Arkansas game, it is obvious that Todd Monken wanted a quarterback that had the capability to move, not just in the pocket, but move. In a way, Todd Monken's been successful with two quarterbacks in 2 seasons at Georgia. JT Daniels over 2020 at the end, in the beginning of 21 to Stetson Bennett in 21. The question is, as he moves forward, if he's at Georgia, can Todd Monken be successful with a third quarterback? If they'd gotten it to work with Dwan Mathis at quarterback, it would have been the next coming of Charlie Ward, except he's bigger, with the ability to run the way that guy could run and the way that Dwan Mathis can run. But at the end of the day, Dwan was not as good at playing quarterback as Stetson was. And that includes understanding when to get rid of the ball, understanding when not to get hit, identifying and executing protections, all of that stuff. For Stetson, this isn't going to be about a throwing competition with Bryce Young. It's not going to work if Georgia gets into that. We've seen that, and they lost by whatever it was. You know, for 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 no quarterback out there, whether you're talking about Bryce Young, Stetson, anybody, nobody wants to sit out there and throw 50 balls. You're in trouble if you're throwing 50 balls. If you're Stetson and you're throwing more than 28 balls, maybe the other part of what you're doing in quarterbacking isn't working. Because if you look at what Stetson does, when he gets right on top of 30 throws, That's where you kind of want him to stop. I think that's typically the case with a lot of quarterbacks. Save your, but the quarterback has to be able to win that way. Yeah, okay, yeah. If you're in real trouble, and typically you don't win games like that. Ask Bryce Young. I mean, Alabama lost twice in 2020. I'm going to go back and tell you the two games that they lost: Georgia and Texas A&M. Right. So what happened in those games for Bryce Young, the guy that won the Heisman Trophy and was the best quarterback a season ago? What happened in those games against Texas A&M? I mean, I've seen worse lines: 28 for 48, 3 touchdowns and interception. You lost though, right? I mean that matters. Against Georgia, 35 of 57 for a touchdown and 2 interceptions, including a pick six. So he throws for 350 yards in both those games. He throws for 48 yards, or 48 passes or more in both those games, and they lose. I mean, it's not what you want. You want your quarterback to play a controlled game. You want your quarterback to play, you know, the way that you want to play. Look at all the games where Bryce Young, and they do throw more Alabama. Let's just say 35 throws or fewer. Beat Cincinnati. They beat Georgia throwing 44. They beat Auburn throwing 51 times. They should have lost that game. Arkansas had to save themselves. 40 throws, 23 against New Mexico State. Last play of the game against LSU, 37 throws. Tennessee, 43 throws. It's too much. It's asking a lot. This is what you want: 28 of 20. Excuse me, 20 of 28. That'll work against Mississippi State. 20 of 26 against Mississippi. 20 of 22 against Southern Miss. 22 of 35. That's about the level that you want to get to, and not more, against the Gators. And of course, they had to survive that game in the fourth quarter. And then 27 of 38 against Miami to open the season. For Stetson, 17 of 26 for 224 yards and 2 touchdowns against Alabama to win the national championship. 20 of 30 against Michigan with 3 touchdowns and 3 runs for 32 yards against Michigan. Great day for him. 29 of 48 against Alabama in the first game. 3 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. You don't want him throwing it that much. The biggest thing and I keep doing that, but you don't want a quarterback throwing it more than 35 times. And in Stetson Bennett's case, you want to be very wary of the 30 throw mark, because if you just look at these games, they were able to control the entire regular season of this game. It's not easy to go undefeated, and Georgia was managed to do that against Vanderbilt. 15 throws, 11 throws against Arkansas, 21 throws against Auburn, 20 against Kentucky. His worst game this season, 10 of 19 against the Gators, 2 interceptions and a touchdown. Just wasn't ideal. 6 runs for 35 yards. Mizzou, 13 of 19. Tennessee, which was probably his second best game, I would argue, just because of his feet. 17 of 29, or of the regular season. 17 of 29, yada, yada, yada. I don't need to go through all this stuff. Stetson Bennett can improve by controlling the game, by being a quarterback, by getting into throws. I mean, we've seen what the guy can do. The throw to Kearis Jackson for a touchdown in Jacksonville. That's a beautiful throw. It's a great throw. That's how you do it. His play against Auburn. I mean, that at the time, I said that was the best he had played. He was 14 of 21 for 66%, 2 touchdowns, 6 runs for 41 yards. He's almost 7 yards a run. Stetson is going to win by and continue to play well by being the quarterback that he is, not by trying to be something he's not. 2,800 yards, 29 touchdowns, and 7 interceptions. It's going to be hard. Now, listen, if he improves on that, I know the haters are going to be in for. He might be in New York. He's not going to win the Heisman, but he might be in New York. I mean, he's talking about, let's just say, 3,300 yards, 32 touchdowns, five interceptions. Georgia plays in the SEC championship game, and they win it. Yeah, Stetson Bennett would be in New York. That'd be my suspicion. But he's got to play at that level, and he's got to play quarterback. That's the challenge for all these guys. Can you play quarterback? Hey, that's what you're out there for.